Alright, in section 8.6, we're going to be looking at solving rational expressions. And the first two examples we're going to do are a little bit easier than the ones we're going to see later. These two are more Algebra 1 concepts than Algebra 2. But for these examples, the first ones we're going to do, example 1, these are just two fractions that are equal to each other. So we can use the same properties we learned in Algebra 1, which is to solve by cross multiplying. So what we're going to do is we're going to multiply the top left and the bottom right. So we'll take the 3, and we'll multiply it to the 4x plus 5. And then we'll do the same thing with the top right and the bottom left. We'll multiply those. So it'll be 9 times x plus 1. And from here, we can just use our algebra skills to distribute and to solve whatever happens to be here. In this case, I think it's going to be a linear. 3 times 4x is 12x. 3 times 5 is 15. 9 times x is 9x. 9 times 1 is 9. And this is just a linear equation. There are no squareds, so all we're going to do is solve this by getting the x's on one side. So I'm going to subtract the 9x over. You get 3x plus 15 equals 9. And then subtract the 15 over to get all the non-x values on the other side. And you'll get 3x equals negative 6. And then you divide out the 3. And your final answer is x equals negative 2. Okay? Alright, the next example, pretty much the same thing. We got two fractions that are going to be set equal to each other, so if you want to pause the video here and try it out yourself, you can. But what I'm going to do for this one is I'm going to cross multiply, so x times x plus 7. And then 3 times negative 2, which is negative 6. Now this time when I distribute, if you notice, x and x get you an x squared. X and 7 get you 7x. And then the negative 6 drops. And this problem is a little bit different in the fact that this is not a linear equation. This does have a squared. So using techniques that we learned back in chapter 4, we're going to get this equation set equal to 0. So I'm going to add the 6 to both sides. And when you do that, these cancel, which means it's now set equal to 0. So in this case, I believe this is factorable. Most times it will be. Factors of 6 that will add to get you 7 are 6 and 1. And you should be comfortable with factoring at this point. Now to solve this, set each of these items equal to 0, just like we did in chapter 4. And when you do that, you will get two different solutions. Subtract the 6, subtract the 1, and you've got your two answers. Now, it's always good practice to check your work too. I'm going to show you this in the calculator for this one. What you can do is you can store these numbers. Like for instance, I'm going to take negative 6. I'm going to store it by doing the STO button right here. I'm going to store that as x. And I'm going to type in the left-hand side, which is x over 3. Hit enter and get a number. Type in the right-hand side. Hit enter, and if it gets you the same number, then you know that's the correct answer. So negative 6 is one of your answers. Okay, I'm going to test the other one just in case as well. So negative 1, store x. I'm just going to scroll up here. I don't have to retype these in. Just scroll up and hit enter on the ones you've already typed in. That will get you negative 1/3. If I scroll up and hit enter on the second side, you also get negative 1/3. So those are both good solutions, and you are finished. All right, the next example, number 3. This one's a little bit different. If you notice, it's not just two fractions set equal to each other. It's got two fractions added together on one side and then another fraction on the right. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to eliminate all of those fractions. Okay, we're going to do that by multiplying both sides by something that when you multiply it, all of those will cancel. This is very similar to what we did with the complex fractions in the previous section. We're going to look at what's on the denominators, which is an x. We're going to multiply that to both sides. And also a 4. We're going to multiply that to both sides. And then we have another x. We don't need to do that again. We've already got that. And what that's going to do is when you multiply this 4x to the first fraction, the x's will cancel. You have 4 times 5, which is 20. When you distribute the 4x to the second fraction, the 4's will cancel, and you're left with the 7 times the x, which is going to get you 7x. And on the right-hand side, you don't have to distribute because there's not two terms, but you're just going to multiply these two, and the x's will cancel, and you're left with negative 9 times 4, which is negative 36. From here, all you have to do now is solve a very simple two-step linear equation. Subtract the 20 over. Get 7x equals negative 56. And then divide the 7 over. And you get your answer to be negative 8. Now, you do want to check for what are called extraneous solutions. This is happening now, just like it did in Chapter 6. Where you could get a solution that works out great when you solve it, but when you plug it back in, it doesn't work. So we're going to test this out. I'm going to store negative 8 as x. I'm going to type in the left-hand side. And get a number. And that number is 9/8. And if I type in the other side, which is negative 9 over x, it gets me the same thing. So that is my solution. That is my answer. Alright, last example for this video. Another one just like example 3 before. So if you want to pause the video and work this one out, go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead and start this though. We're going to multiply both sides by something that will get the x and the 5's to cancel. So I'm going to multiply both sides by the 5. And also the x's. So when you do that, when you multiply here, the x's cancel. 5 times 15 is going to wind up getting you 75. The plus sign drops. 5x times 4/5, the 5's cancel. You're left with the 4 and the x, which is 4x. On the right-hand side, when you multiply these, the x's cancel. 7 times 5 is 35. And then from here, just like before, solve your two-step linear. This is a linear equation. So subtract the 75 over. The 75's cancel. 35 minus 75 is going to get you negative 40. Divide the 4 over. And you've got your answer, which is going to be negative 10. And just like before, check your work. So negative 10, store x. And we're going to type the left-hand side in. Just get practice by getting your fraction bar. Hit enter. Once you do that, get a number. And then type in the right-hand side, which is 7 over x. And it's going to get you the exact same thing, which means your solution is good. That is your final answer.